Welcome, everyone, to the MMOs.com podcast. Episode 183 here. We're a bit late. We skipped last week, but we're back. And I'm joined this week by...
Remote.
Right.
You know, some weeks I'm Remo, some weeks I'm Remote, other weeks I'm Omer. You know, I just can't decide on what to call myself these days. I'm having an identity crisis, Altai.
Man of many masks.
What do you think, Altai? Do I go with Remote or Remo? What's your preferred?
Out of those two, Remo.
Okay. That's my preferred noun.
It's just shorter. One.
All right, we'll go with Remo.
All right. Well, with that said, we have 2 weeks of stories to cover since we skipped out on last week. And we finally have a weekly raid once again because something exciting happened, at least recently this month, and that is Apex Legends. Came out of nowhere. Perhaps we talked about it a while back, but this game is blowing up, boys. It is. I thought like Battle Royale kind of was at its peak, you know? But now we got Apex Legends, and within 1 week, 7 days of releasing, it hit 2 million concurrent players. 2 million, that is insane. Now, it's not quite as high as PUBG's, peak concurrent from like 2 years from last year, which was 3.2 million.
Well, what? Yeah, PUBG's, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and then Fortnite had about 8.5 million concurrent. But the thing about Apex is it got there much quicker. It got to 2 million much quicker than the previous two. And if it keeps this momentum up, I suspect it will pass PUBG's former peak this month, at the end of this month. What do you think?
Definitely. I mean, it's on an amazing course so far. And it really, I've played a lot of PUBG. I've played a decent amount of Fortnite. I've played Realm Royale. I've played a lot of these random Battle Royale games, quite a bit. And I'm enjoying Apex Legends a lot. And there's a lot of stark differences between Apex Legends and other Battle Royale games. No need to rehash them, but it does things a lot different. And playing this again reminded me of why Battle Royale games are so successful. Because as I played Apex Legends, I thought to myself, why am I not playing Overwatch? Why am I not playing Counter-Strike? Why am I playing Apex Legends? And I realized it because every round of Apex Legends is ever so slightly different. And I noticed myself fighting in different parts of the map, whether it's, it applies obviously Fortnite and PUBG as well. You're always fighting in different angles. You have different loot. You have different set of circumstances every single time. And that keeps the game a bit fresh. And it's one of the few games you can sit down and play for 3-4 hours and not get burnt out of it right away. I actually can't imagine myself playing Overwatch again. I mean, Overwatch is by no means a bad game. I've played at least 150 to 200, 300 hours of Overwatch, but I can't see myself playing it anymore. I'm totally done with it. I've played every map in Overwatch so many times. And basically every round of Overwatch, and obviously I'm no pro player. I've gone to 3,200 something SR. Every round of Overwatch feels the same. You're basically camping the same chokes every single time. I can't tell you how many times I've aimed down certain pathways in Overwatch. It's the same thing. In Route 66, those same chokeholds you have, it's essentially the same nonsense over and over again. And I'm so done with it. Whereas, in any Battle Royale game, you're always approaching different situations, slightly differently, whether you have a full squad, 2 people, 1 person, and it keeps things fresh. And I think that's what's very important in gaming, that you have to be able to keep the experience different. And I feel like a lot of shooters really can't do that. And that's the reason why a lot of shooters are basically once a year franchises. That's why there's a new Call of Duty game every year. That's why no shooter ever maintains super popularity over a long time. I think CSGO was one of the only successful ones, but most shooting games are really yearly franchises. And even Battlefield doesn't really, a new one comes out every few years.
Yep.
But Battle Royale games do feel different. And I do think games like Fortnite do have a lot of staying power. And I think Apex Legends, when they keep adding more heroes, it's combining the best elements of Overwatch with hero shooting elements with the different gameplay of the Battle Royale. I mean, the Battle Royale itself is so simple. The concept is not really that different or unique, but it's that it creates so many different circumstances where you can have fights that you've never had before. You spend 200 hours in PUBG, 200 hours in Apex Legends, you still find yourself in situations, holy shit, all I have left in this circle is this set of gear, and on a 1v3 situation with this terrain, and it's slightly different every time. And I think it works really well for it.
Another observation I made, which I think was particularly stark in Apex because of the speed. If you notice, so PUBG obviously started this trend in 2017, and we're only 2 years out from PUBG's closed beta. And now we have, Apex doing great too. But if you go back and play PUBG or even Fortnite, one of the things that surprised me is how big the map is. Matches are long. Whereas in Apex, it's a pretty tight map. You can land anywhere and you can get to the circles, you get to the action within a minute, really. If you just sprint for a minute, you can pretty much get from anywhere to the center of the map, pretty much.
Yeah.
And the beautiful thing is, it seems to me like the strings are more invisible in Apex. And here's what I mean by that. Imagine me, Omar, and a random third person. We drop, right? And we land like 1 second before Shroud's team, right? And we get the gun first. We can kill him, right?
Yeah.
Now, in Overwatch, my team will never beat a pro team, right? It's impossible. Like, we could play 1,000,000 rounds. And same thing in Counter-Strike. We will never win. I will never win a gunfight against like a much better player, right? But in Apex, you can if you're a few seconds early, if you could jump on somebody, they're looking the other way, you go behind them, boom, you just killed someone who's way better than you. You could not fire a shot and get to within the last 10 players in Apex.
I like the fact that like the only way Altai can ever envision himself killing Shroud or a really good Apex player is if he lands and gets like a full set of gear before Shroud picks up anything. That's the only way Altai can envision himself being able to kill a good player. I like it.
Well, think about it. It's I think I'm above average, but not good. But there are a lot of people who are even worse than me, and they enjoy games like this because they could come in last. They can come in. And by the way, obviously, like I said, you cannot fire a shot and get within the last 10 minutes standing in a battle royale, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in Overwatch, if you're like, or a league or whatever, if you're bronze, right? You're bronze. You ain't beating anyone that's gold. It's impossible. Like a bronze team of 5 is not gonna beat a gold 5 team of 5.
No,
ever. Like if they play 100 rounds,
they won't.
And they'll always be last, and they'll feel it, and they'll see it. But in Apex, oh well, guys, we did pretty good. We came in like 5th, even though they didn't get a single kill.
Yeah, that's true. And we've talked about this a lot in the podcast. Where games like StarCraft 2, which are 1v1 games, essentially the online ladder, games like that very clearly show like they're games of skill. There's very little chance in those games. But I think bad players especially, and I feel like most players can be pretty bad, and that's why I think some of the most successful games in the world rely heavily on some levels of RNG. A bad player can always get carried in League of Legends as well. You can get carried. You could do really well in Battle Royale by simply getting better weapons. We're not fighting anyone till the end. Things like that do happen, and you could get lucky headshots too. Like there is room for RNG in Hearthstone as well. A really bad player can just beat a really good player purely because of RNG as well. So games that are just purely skill based, whether it's StarCraft 2 or chess or any just game that's raw skill, it doesn't have too much wide appeal online in video games because the skill difference always really shows. And I think that's what really works really well for Battle Royale, that you could have a good experience even if you're really bad. A little bit of RNG sprinkled on an interesting game, I think does a lot. And I think even if you're a really good skilled player, you don't want a game to be purely skill-based, because if it's purely skill-based, games do get pretty boring. Like StarCraft 1v1, I say it's a fun game, but it couldn't appeal to many people. I got bored of it pretty quickly, and I think a lot of people did, and that's why the game isn't as big as it is. It's not that big today.
Yeah, and besides that, there's a few good new features in Apex that other games didn't have.
Yeah,
the respawn feature is really important, because one of the big problems with either Fortnite or PUBG is if you're playing with friends, which most a lot of people do, and you die early because you got unlucky. Like I said, imagine you land next to somebody, but like 2 seconds late, and he got the gun and killed you. Now you gotta sit there and watch your friends play for like up to 20 minutes, so, and that's it. You're just sitting there watching. It's boring. Whereas in Apex, there's always hope. As long as they pick up the little chip, there's always hope they can res you. So you're kind of invested. You stay invested into your squad until the end of the game.
And you make call outs for them. You try to tell them, there's a guy behind you. There's a guy to your left. They can hear things for you too.
So res me.
Yeah. I do that a lot too. I think it's a genius feature. There's a lot of little features in terms of the game design itself, which is beautiful. That works really well to Apex Legends' favor. And I do think there's a good chance that Apex Legends can gain a lot of momentum, and I think it'll be sucking away a lot of players from PUBG. And Fortnite as well. The Fortnite still obviously is a much bigger game with 8.5 million concurrent players, but the way Apex is growing right now is incredible.
And one last observation I made, and I want to see if you agree with this. So, for me, Apex Legends kind of reminded me of the value of big companies like EA. If this was launched by like an independent studio, right? Like Apex Legends was launched by a studio like PUBG, right? It would be in pre-alpha testing for like 2 years. It'd be buggy as shit. There'd be no incentive to make it polished, right? But we didn't get any of that. We didn't get any pre-alpha founders packages. But for the most part, it launched in a very functional state. Yes, there were some people disconnecting once in a while, but it was nowhere near as bad as PUBG. I would say even week 1, Apex ran better than PUBG does today. 2 years.
Yeah, definitely, 100%.
And
it works. I mean, people do crash. They're it's not perfect, but the experience for most players in Apex Legends at launch is better than like most players in PUBG today, which is remarkable.
Yeah, so I think that there's some value still in these big companies like EA or what Activision Blizzard, which is getting a lot of heat for other reasons this week. But yeah.
So, yeah, with Battle Royale too, it's remarkable just how many like other Battle Royale games we're getting nowadays too. Even can you believe, Altai, that Tetris has embraced Battle Royale?
I saw that. It's a great trailer.
Isn't that insane that like how much Battle Royale has caught on that we have a Tetris Battle Royale game, even though the interaction between players in Tetris is pretty minimal, you know? It's just, you send pieces to the other opponents as you kill your own pieces. But we now have a Tetris Battle Royale, Tetris 99. That shit was surprising, and it's remarkable that even Tetris is embracing Battle Royale.
And it's free to play, Tetris 99. On Switch. I'm actually going to try that one. I haven't tried it yet. Have you?
No, I haven't played it yet either. Definitely a neat concept. And the idea of Battle Royale, too, before we get too far away from it, I want to touch on one more thing on it, because I know we've had a long-running conversation about whether MMOs were dead or not. And while I still contend that I don't think MMORPGs are dead by any stretch, if we look at the nominal numbers of people playing MMORPGs and MMOs today, I would say are still higher than ever before. However, I think my brother had an interesting conversation when we were Panera Bread eating lunch one day about the relative figures, which I think are pretty astounding. So I think MMORPGs, relatively speaking, with the rest of the gaming market, has gotten much smaller.
Yes.
Only because everything else has grown so much more. The nominal numbers for MMORPGs have increased nominally. There's more players in MMORPGs today than ever before. But relatively speaking, with the total pie of games, it's much smaller. And the best way to illustrate this, I think, is to look at World of Warcraft, the premier MMORPG. It peaked at 12 million subscribers, right? 12 million players. Do you know 12 million players? People don't realize it doesn't mean 12 million concurrent players. It means 12 million monthly active users. And that's being generous. If we assume every subscriber is an active monthly user, I'm sure a good chunk of those 12 million subscribers didn't play at all that month, right? So the most you can have with World of Warcraft at its absolute peak, one of the most successful MMORPGs of all time, is 12 million monthly active users. And if you look at the current roster of games today, League of Legends was boasting at 100 million monthly active users just last year. League of Legends with 100 million monthly active users by itself is almost 10 times bigger than World of Warcraft at its peak. And that was just last year. And that's one game. If you look at Minecraft came out with an interesting stat just, I think, in December of 2018, saying they had 91 million monthly active users. So Minecraft alone is like 7 times bigger than World of Warcraft ever was. Fortnite has over 80 million monthly active users. These are just 3 games. That was compared to MMORPGs back then when WoW was one of the big boys. When WoW was 12 million monthly subscribers, no other game had these kinds of huge numbers. At that point, WoW was actually one of the biggest video games ever. It wasn't just the biggest MMORPG ever. It was one of the biggest and most popular video games ever. And that's just not the case today for really any MMORPG.
Yeah, and that's very important because here's another random example. In the 1800s, the British Navy, ruled the world, and today it doesn't. But you could say, and I would say it's probably true, that the 2019 British Navy could sink the British Navy of 1800s, right? Because they're all wooden ships, one. So yes, even though the British Navy today is stronger than the British Navy of 1800s, it's relatively a weak Navy compared to the U.S. Navy. And in the same way, yes, MMORPGs are still being played by lots of people, whether it's Dungeon Fighter Online in China or WoW still in America. It's relative to other genres, other games. It is a minnow, sadly.
Yeah, I think that's really where a lot of the people that's where they get the feeling that MMORPGs are dying, I guess, because it doesn't occupy the same mind share. When they look at like the gaming universe, they look at Twitch, they look at gaming. I was about to say gaming magazines to show my age. Nobody reads gaming magazines anymore, but like you look at like games, even like GameSpot, which probably nobody reads anymore, or Giant Bomb, or these big gaming websites, right? Like MMORPGs basically represent a smaller and smaller share of anything you ever see. If you play WoW, you play Elder Scrolls, you play Final Fantasy XIV, you play any MMORPG, you are a minority in the gaming universe. You don't really see MMORPGs ever taking up the mainstream gaming news. It's really never on the front page of Twitch, unless Ninja boots up Final Fantasy XI, which I want to talk about later. But you just don't see it, and that's why you feel like MMORPGs are dying. But the raw numbers wise, it's not dying, but it feels like it's dying because it's just not in the mainstream anymore.
Yep.
I want to talk a little bit about I was watching Ninja the other day, and he was playing Final Fantasy XI for a long time. He's playing for hours and hours, right? And obviously, Ninja playing, he's well known for playing Fortnite. He's one of the biggest. He's actually, I think, the biggest streamer last year in terms of total hours watched, concurrent viewers, all that stuff. And he was a big Final Fantasy XI fan. And watching him play was very interesting because I noticed 2 things. One, the gameplay he was doing in Final Fantasy XI was basically just farming. He was grinding essentially with a squad of like 4 people, right? They were basically pulling one enemy and killing it with like the ganking with 4 players at once, right? It was a 4 versus 1, constantly killing mobs, right? And I'm looking at the chat. Everyone is saying he's got only like 5,000 viewers right now. He normally has like 100,000 viewers, something crazy when he plays Fortnite, right? Or like 50,000, whatever. He's got 5,000 viewers. Everyone's like, this is boring, because the people watching Shroud are mostly there for Fortnite, and they're younger. I would say his audience is much younger than average, and they're saying this is boring. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, it kind of does look boring, doesn't it? But then I thought to myself, no, not really, because if you look at the modern MMORPG experience, what Shroud was doing in Final Fantasy XI was more exciting than what any modern MMORPG does. The fact that he's struggling with 4 people to kill 1 mob was actually kind of it was slower pace. He had to work together with 4 people to kill 1 mob. I mean, there was really no boss mechanics, but he was killing things. Not Shroud, Ninja. I Shroud in my mind, but killing 1 enemy was. It wasn't like particularly exciting, but I would say it was way more exciting than seeing MapleStory 2 today, seeing somebody level in Final Fantasy XIV today, where you're basically going from point A to point B, grinding quests, killing monsters that have 0 challenge.
By yourself.
By yourself, communicating with nobody, killing monsters in 1 or 2 hits because they have no chance of hurting you, and you have no chance of dying. They die in 2 hits, and you're basically running from quest to quest on a complete autopilot mode. So comparing Final Fantasy XI to the modern MMORPG experience, even though I didn't really play Final Fantasy XI, and it was really hard to get into. No, I don't think that was what he was doing was particularly boring. I would say that it's remarkable how game developers have taken the MMORPG concept over the years and have actually made it more boring. Like, I'm not saying Final Fantasy XI was particularly exciting, but that was more exciting than our current MMORPG experience today. I don't know how we got from point A to point B where we are today, but it's really bad. It's atrocious, you know. What sticks out to me most is when I played Revelation Online, that Chinese MMORPG that My.com launched, and it was the most bizarre experience because it was the entire game for the first like 3-4 hours is on autopilot. You're just running from one NPC to one NPC, killing 3 frogs, picking up 3 flowers, cutting down 1 tree, and you're doing nothing for 3 hours, and there's no communication required. And when I play Final Fantasy XIV today, and I do my roulette, if I do like a leveling roulette, I do an expert roulette, and my dailies basically in the game. But I do my dailies in Final Fantasy XIV today. What happens is one tank pulls literally every monster he can in the dungeon, and then we just all kill it. And there's no communication. So, again, let me clarify this a little better. Because in Final Fantasy XIV, when you do an expert roulette, there's basically like 4 bosses in an expert dungeon, right? And they're gated. So you literally cannot run past that first gate until you kill all the trash mobs, right? So the tank, he literally pulls every single trash mob he can up until that first gate. He would love to pull all the trash mobs in the dungeon, but he can't. He's got to stop when he gets to that first gate. So he pulls every mob until that first gate, and then we literally just kill everything. And then he goes to the next gate and does the same thing over and over again. And at no point is there any communication. I have done at least 100 expert roulettes, countless leveling roulettes in the game, and nobody ever speaks. If anybody says even hi, it's surprising. There's not one word uttered doing your dailies in Final Fantasy XIV. It's a game I've played for the last like 2-3 years pretty actively. I mean, I love the game, but there's 0 communication. There's nothing happening. All right, that's my rant.
Ooh, good rant there.
Ooh, there's some passion there, boys.
Yes, I agree. A lot of what we see now is single-player content. Nothing but single-player content.
Mm-hmm.
And so do you see, let's try to be optimistic. Do you see any light at the end of the rainbow? Is any game that's in the horizon gonna fix that?
Oof, good question. There's a few games trying to do something a little different. There was that one Korean MMORPG that Nexon's working on, but like no, like for the we don't really have any other like big studios making MMORPGs. I mean, I guess you have that Crowfall and stuff, but I feel like Crowfalls aren't Parrot Chronicles. Yeah, I don't think Crowfall is really like a traditional MMORPG. I mean, games like Crowfall really build themselves these PvP games.
PvP, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think Crowfall is trying to recreate an MMORPG experience. It's very clear from what they've talked about that Crowfall is not an MMORPG in the sense that most of us view an MMORPG. And MMORPG doesn't have to be that shitty formula either. But it looks like for Crowfall, at least, a lot of these games are not trying to be ambitious in their in that PvE scope. They're very PvP driven. I mean, you can have good PvP in an MMORPG, but it just doesn't feel like an MMORPG when that's really the only part of the game. Star Citizen, I don't know about that.
Any aspirations for the one that's coming out this week? Actually, Kurtzpel is entering closed beta.
No, but Kurtzpel is again not really an MMORPG.
I know it's a lobby. It's not really. It's a lobby thing, right? But it could. It's
a 2v2 PvP game. In fact, their press release.
I thought it's got dungeons and shit.
It has some optional side dungeons, probably the same way Guns the Duel had like side dungeons you could do PvE in, right? But
Guns. I thought it was something more like Dungeon Fighter Online.
It's not though, because
Oh no.
I thought so as well because I never played the game before, right?
Yeah.
But I looked at their Kurtzpel sent a release earlier saying they announced their beta registrations, right? And the COG Games launched an official website for their upcoming 2v2 PvP title. That's the way this game is being built.
2v2 PvP title?
PvP title. This
Oh,
is not
no.
built as an MMO. This is not. Don't expect any kind of MMO from Kurtzpel. So I give you a link on Discord so you can just see their press release over here.
Oh man, I was expecting something more along the lines of like DFO,
Maybe Soul Worker,
yeah,
DFO,
Soul Worker,
yeah.
Critica.
So these games aren't trying to really be an MMO. I think somebody mentioned in the chat as well, New World. And now Chaos Shield that New World isn't looking good, but at least New World is trying something a bit different. But it's still fair to call New World an MMORPG. It's a persistent world. It has some RPG elements, some kind of skill gain elements, and at least you got to hand it to New World for trying to do something a little bit different. I like the model of New World, and I like the model of Atlas a lot as well. But the problem is these games can never really translate into kind of universal appeal because they end up being very bloated and complicated. I mean, the UIs in Atlas and New World, I've seen the videos. I've tried Atlas, but in New World, it seems like a UI overload. They have not been able to simplify this design, I think, for a mass market yet. I mean, I love Rust, and I think a lot of people that played Rust love the UI, the simplicity of Rust. But I guess when you start scaling a game like Rust up into like tens of thousands of players in one world, it gets very complicated. And no game is able to distill that complication down to more simple, digestible form. Because I think if you can, that could be our next, big MMORPG. But no one's done it yet. I don't think anyone's been able to do it.
Yeah, I haven't tried New World yet, but from what I've seen, I think you're right. I think it looks a little too busy for mainstream appeal.
Really trying to think, like, what was the last MMORPG we've had? The last few MMORPGs we've had that I think that pushed the MMORPG genre at least like a little bit forward. I mean, they're not perfect games, right? But I think there are elements of Black Desert Online in terms of having a wide, persistent open world with that action combat, right?
Single start, no load.
Yeah. BDO, I think, is really the last game I think that really did a lot for the MMORPG genre. I mean, again, not perfect, but the action combat in an open world is amazing. I actually like the Blade and Soul combat a lot more personally. I love the Blade and Soul combat, right? But it was much more compartmentalized. The zones in Blade and Soul were instance, well, not instance, but like they were very segmented. Whereas you have a persistent open world in Black Desert. And the combat felt a little more MMORPG-esque, more traditional PvE elements in Blade. I know Black Desert Online has added more PvE elements too, but in terms of actually pushing the genre forward, I think those two games are the only ones that have done anything even remotely different. We've had so many Dungeon Fighter Online clones where you have the instance dungeons with the persistent hubs. That's been recycled a billion times. We've had so many, WoW clones. Like these are the two big archetypes for MMORPGs: WoW clones and games and DFO clones, which are instance dungeon persistent hub style games. We've seen so many of those games, and yeah,
it's funny that I'm actually I was actually, it's been so long that I was actually eagerly awaiting another one of those instant dungeon MMOs. Like Kurtzpel, because I thought that's what Kurtzpel was going to be, but apparently not.
It's not. Yeah, it's not going to be one of those. But the archetypes for MMOs are really, and the only games that break those molds were, in the last few years, and Blade of Soul is pretty old now. I mean, Black Desert Online is pushing 3 years old now or something. So these games aren't exactly new anymore. And the games we were excited for, remember Bless? That hot Duker? At no point was Bless ambitious. The only interesting part about Bless for me, when we did hype it up a little bit on this podcast in the past. The only part of the game I was actually hyped for, and I think I made pretty clear, was the difficulty. Because it took a very standard free-to-play MMORPG experience. It was actually old school challenging, like old school EverQuest, old school WoW style difficult, where you would actually die on dungeons. And I put up a video on MMOs.com YouTube channel talking about that too, where it was actually we ran a dungeon and we wiped the first boss 4 times, and we did it with 4 people. And then I made a video of the NA version of Bless where I soloed the boss when I'm 4 levels below it by myself with no chance of dying. When they completely gutted that experience, it was just another duker to me. I mean, it ran like ass too, but the design went out the window too.
Indeed. Well,
and Maple Story 2 as well. I do want to give some props to Maple Story 2 for at least the kind of MMORPG they created. But I think where Maple Story 2 did really well was basically everything but the core gameplay. But the core gameplay was very repetitive and boring. And it was also super easy, unfortunately, which made all of the side stuff was great, but you have to have that side stuff within a functioning, decent MMORPG. And I think the core gameplay in Maple Story 2 wasn't decent. It was pretty bad. It was pretty boring. Very uninspiring. The fact that at no point was it challenging, and the pacing was completely off. Yeah. They screwed up a lot of the basics, but they had a lot of good ideas. And those good ideas, I guess, I do want to give them credit for at least, doing something a little bit different.
Do we know why they decided to make the leveling so quick? I remember even the side quests were not like, you didn't have to do them like in
No,
Story 2.
you never had to decide
You
quests
could get to max level in like a day in that game. Like what was the reasoning there? It felt like the experience curve of a game that's already been out for like 8 years, and they're trying to make it.
Exactly. And you would think Next Time would know better, because one of their most successful games is MapleStory 1. MapleStory 1 today is still one of the biggest like MMORPGs in the world because of their success in Korea. And while Big Bang and stuff and MapleStory, if it sped up the leveling experience quite a bit, even in the Western version, once you get to level 200, it was not easy to level up. MapleStory was a very grindy experience. Whereas you get the max level MapleStory 2 like in a couple of days of like just doing the main story quest, no side quests needed. MapleStory 1 still had that extreme grind. They increased level cap as well, so there's even more grind now. So slowing down that leveling process is unbelievably important, because if you get the max level in a couple of days, like you really devalue that entire experience. It feels like, why did this even exist in the game? At no point did you get to understand the world, appreciate your character's progression the way you did in MapleStory 1.
Is anyone playing MapleStory 2 still? I'm curious from your experience what the numbers are like, because Steam, I think, doesn't cover the full player base, because most people probably play from the launcher.
Mm-hmm.
But if you do go on Steam, though, it's MapleStory 2 is really tanking.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
We got
major
major double-digit declines every month.
Mm-hmm. Which, again, it's really sad, because they did so much right, but then they dropped the ball on the core gameplay. And it's just, I really don't understand. I really, there's something like some common sense must be missing from some of the game design like world, because, even when I'm playing Final Fantasy 14, the problem is when there's nothing like there's really not much more to do in terms of content in Final Fantasy 14 for me. Like the core progression, I'm kind of done with basically. I'm on level 400. I'm waiting for the next set of stuff to come out so I can do them. Then once you reach that point, there's no reason to log in anymore. And for a lot of people, once you reach max level, you're already mostly there. You got to work towards something. And the thing, the progression on the gear didn't make any sense in MapleStory 2. It was complete bullshit RNG the way you would progress for your gear running the late game dungeons, the chaos raids. Like it was the most frustrating, because you at first when you do a late game dungeon, you have a chance of getting gear that doesn't apply to your character. You might get like a high level gear that you just can't even wear for yourself. It was completely, and you can't even trade it either. So it was so useless. The design made no sense. That fortunately, MapleStory 2 did say they were gonna, they're going the full like RuneScape route, where they said we're gonna talk to our player base and figure this shit out. Right? That's what they said. We're gonna figure this shit out before we implement our next patch. We're gonna take feedback, propose solutions, list the feedback on those solutions, and propose new solutions, and hopefully address all the problems. So they're trying it. They're taking a more hands-on approach to MapleStory 2's development with engaging the player base, and hopefully it ends up working out, because the games we've seen do that, old school RuneScape, seem to be doing really well.
Yeah. Well, going back a little bit to the MMORPGs, I think the hope we have left, I think, is going to be reserved for the ones that kind of blend in MMOs with the FPS genre. So whether it's games like The Division, Destiny, Anthem, and I think Warframe kind of paved the way here.
Mm-hmm.
So what we need is a big budget Western Warframe-esque game.
Well, we have Warframe, which it's a Western game as well.
Yeah, but I'm talking about like
Anthem
a big
as well to a degree.
Anthem, but here's the thing with Anthem. I don't know how it's going to be from the murmuring I'm hearing in the the grapevine. It doesn't. It seems like a lot of the air in that one has been lost.
I want to show you a funny clip my friend linked me. I think it was Kios who linked a clip from a popular streamer playing Anthem. And I want everyone on the stream to pay attention to this man's crosshairs. Okay, it's only a 24-second clip. Just pay attention very clearly to where the crosshairs are and how on earth he's hitting his opponents. The aiming is completely broken in this game.
All right, so Lucifer King, 7 months.
Thank you, Lucifers. Much love.
Aye. So let me make this bigger, because otherwise I can't see it.
Yeah.
All right, here we go, boys. I like the last shot.
I'm getting that guy on the right.
What?
I'm getting him. I won't lie. I'm actually kind of disgusted at how well I'm hitting these enemies.
That should never happen.
Are these are AI though, right? He's fighting like
he's killing AI. And if I remember correctly, there's other issues too with Anthem, some real baka business where people can play like there's a sandbox mode where there's like no enemies, right? And you can just You just basically look at the map and find really rare treasure in the sandbox mode where there's no enemies. Take that treasure and bring it with you. Save it on your character for multiplayer mode.
Wow.
Some real Baka business tier stuff happening in the Anthem world.
I feel like this was the wrong project for a studio like BioWare. They should have stuck to their single
Core
player.
competence.
Yeah, exactly. And then a different kind of studio should have taken on this mantle.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because, I mean, if you look at some of the studios that really specialize, you look at like Paradox, for example, Paradox Interactive. They're the guys that made Europa Universalis, all those grand strategy games, the 4X strategy games. They keep making those strategy games. And they keep doing really well. I think 2018 was their most successful year ever. And they keep doing the same thing and just polishing it up. And I think BioWare is known for making these, epic, single player RPG experiences. And to have them make an MMORPG with Star Wars Republic and for them to make Anthem, I mean, I'm not saying they're incapable of doing it, but it just seems like, you're rolling the dice over there to see if something comes out that's, a logical progression of what came before.
And you know what I want to do? I want to contrast the reception online so far with Anthem versus Apex Legends. Mm-hmm. So I think Apex Legends wisely decided not to reveal itself until it was ready and then just dropped the game. And now it's at 2 million concurrent players. Whereas Anthem, I've been hearing about Anthem for 2 or 3 years now. Mm-hmm. It's just like, it's in the background now. You know what I'm saying? Like, if this game just came out today, like, boom, like, here's this big game, MMO/shooter, RPG/shooter, whatever you want to call it. I think the buzz would be a lot bigger. I think there's this service when you drag a game out, it's media blitz for 2 years.
Yeah, I think somebody mentioned in the chat too, Yantex. It's like Blade is still being announced, forever ago and coming out in the West, literally years later. A lot of that buzz definitely died down. I think a lot of people were excited for Blade and Soul in the West at first, but then by the time it came out, it did lose a lot of steam. And what's remarkable too, if you look at the launch numbers, I mean, I remember when early access began for Anthem. Remember, Anthem isn't technically out yet. It launched on the 22nd, I believe. And this is like anyone that pays for EA access or Origin access gets access to it early. But at no point was it even a top 5 game on Twitch. It's being outranked by all the usual suspects, and it's currently sitting at number 14 or something, right? So it really didn't have the same hype or buzz that a lot of these other games did have.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know if you missed that. I missed it. But when is the actual full release for everyone?
I think 22nd.
Okay, so wow, very soon.
Yeah, February 22nd is the full launch.
Cool.
Mm-hmm. But I feel like anyone that's really into already, got into it with the essentially the early access.
I gave Destiny 2 a brief try, and I'll probably do the same for Anthem. I don't have high expectations personally because Destiny 2 also didn't do it for me. And this seems like it's obviously heavily inspired by that. But I will give it a try, and I'll let you know what I think.
Yeah. I didn't mention earlier, too, we were talking about the size of games. We talked about League being over 100 million monthly active users, Minecraft being 91 million monthly active, Fortnite being over 80 million. There's one game I didn't mention there either. There's a lot of mobile games we're not even talking about. If you want to look at the size of the the market nowadays, with WoW being 12 million monthly active back in the day, Honor of Kings has 200 million monthly active users by itself. So Honor of Kings, in terms of the scale of World of Warcraft being a big deal back in with Wrath of the Lich King, this one mobile game has literally 18 times the audience that the most successful MMORPGs in the world has ever had in this peak. So it's still pretty remarkable. And I think games like Apex, games like even Anthem has at least addressing a much bigger market. With MMORPGs, I don't think MMORPGs are addressing a giant market the way a MOBA or any battle royale game is. I think you mentioned before we even started the stream that if you're a big company and you were trying to pitch an MMORPG, you must be retarded. I mean, I know it's not a very PC term, but you must be crazy. Best case scenario, you get 50,000 players online. Versus Apex Legends or any battle royale game, best case scenario, you get 3 million players online. The addressable market is just not there for MMORPGs.
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine the meeting? It's okay, Apex Legends. It's got 2 million concurrent players. It's one map, 8 characters, and maybe a dozen guns, right?
Yeah.
And 60 players tops per match, and each match is 20 minutes, right?
Yeah.
That game makes 2 million concurrent players. And now you're pitching me a MMORPG with dozens and dozens of zones, and each zone has to be as complicated as that one Apex map, right? It's got to have probably, I would say, 1,000 NPCs, thousands of quests, It's got to have instance dungeons. Everything's got to have at least 8 classes, all balanced. PvP, PvE, balanced at each phase too, like level 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, right? Come on, like it's such a hard sell right now with the I guess the state of the gaming.
Yeah, I wish we knew the development budget of a game like Apex Legends, because like you said, an MMORPG requires a tremendous amount of like effort and to make and release, versus a game like, I mean, Apex Legends is clearly a very polished, beautiful game, but the scale of a game like Apex Legends is not like is not ridiculous, So it must cost like orders of magnitude less than like a AAA MMORPG. Whether it's, I bet you ESO costs multiples of what Apex Legends costs to make. I mean, we're not even talking about like Star Wars: Old Republic, which costs over 100 million.
I'll put it more bluntly. The studio that made Apex Legends, Respawn Entertainment, they made a game called Titanfall and Titanfall 2. I bet of the 3 games they made now, Titanfall 1, 2, and Apex Legends costs less than half what Titanfall cost, right, to make. But it made
in terms of scope, yeah, definitely.
But it made like 100 million bajillion times more money. Because it's just a simpler game. You don't need like these, you don't need a story. You don't need all these different maps. You need one map, a few characters that have a few voice lines, and that's it.
Yeah, it is a much larger addressable market, and that's why I think we will not get a lot of other PC MMORPGs in the West, because the addressable market for these games is not nearly as large. Again, the genre is not dead, but as a percent of the total gaming mindshare, as a percent of the total people playing video games now, is definitely less, probably shrinking than ever before. We still have really the only big PC MMORPGs left in the world. I mean, WoW is still hanging in there in the West, but really is in China. Games like Dungeon Fighter Online still have like 2 million concurrent players. I think Dungeon Fighter Online today is like as big as World of Warcraft was in its peak worldwide, and we're looking at just China for Dungeon Fighter Online. So in China, you still have a PC MMORPGs, holding on, but all the big games, even in China, are all coming out from mobile. And I think MMORPGs will hopefully live on through mobile, and we'll get a lot of new MMORPGs on mobile that are actually decent. We don't really have them today. It's all very autoplay nonsense, but hopefully they pick up on there.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna give up totally on MMORPGs in terms of scope, because eventually I think we'll have tools to make it cheaper. Like if you can imagine, a lot of the side quests, especially in MMORPGs, are like very low level writing, and I can imagine in the future that machine learning or whatever just spitting those out, like, help, our forest is being attacked by X goblins, please save us by killing X, 15 of them. So you can just automate the shit, and then that way the cost will come down.
I mean, I'm looking at some development cost stuff. People are saying the Shadow of the Tomb Raider, that single player game, the development cost between 75 and 100 million just to make the game, forget promotion. I bet you anything Apex Legends costs a fraction of that, because the scale of a game like Shadow of the Tomb Raider, the scale of a game like Titanfall 2, they're just trying to do so much more rather than just a 60-player arena where people duke it out. The formula has been tried and true with Fortnite and PUBG, and they already had like the Titanfall engine. Actually, I mean, they're doing a heavily modified Source engine, the same as Titanfall 2.
Yes, it's based on Source.
Like the only one that they're like the only battle royale game that's not built on Unreal Engine 3 or 4, and it's been working for them.
It has, and a few other games have tried making battle royales. I know Realm Royale launched with a huge buzz, but then it plummeted to nothing.
Hey, I was actually looking at Realm Royale. Their player base up is 4-fold higher today than it was in October of 2018.
Whoa, wow.
They dipped a lot, and now they're on the way back up, boys. Realm Royale is our underdog story of 2019. All right, they're coming back.
I don't know about that.
They're coming back.
So they launched with over 32,000 concurrent, right, average players, peak of 100,000, and even now, last 30 days, they're at 10,000. So that's a 90% loss of players. And I suspect they're doing well because of Apex Legends now. There's a revived interest in the genre.
We need some more imagination in the genre. We need more Sword Art Onlines, all right? Somebody in the chat that when we get full dive technology, MMORPGs will be huge, all right? I do think, as kind of silly as the technology in Sword Art Online was, like it did in a way get people excited for MMORPGs in a weird way. I think I bet you there's some kind of correlation between when Sword Art Online launched, the anime, and people's interest in MMORPGs. It must have spiked, at least for a short period.
Well, we can do a Google Trends analysis here, boys. Hacker time.
All right, upload the data. Analyzing. Crunching numbers. Sword Art Online apparently released in 2012.
Sword Art Online.
And let's search MMORPG. Was there a correlation, Altai?
I'm going to compare it to MMORPG.
See the data, boys.
And no.
Nothing.
All right. The scientific council has ruled. Hypothesis is void.
It's been debunked.
Debunked.
We've been debunked, boys. We were bunked, and now we're debunked. Well, your chart only goes back 12 months, Altai.
Oh, my bad. Let's go. Yeah, you're
Altai,
right.
you know what?
All right, not debunked.
We not debunked, boys. Take it back.
back.
I look at the stream.
We're back,
boys.
We're back.
All right, we've learned.
No, still nothing. Still nothing.
Alrighty.
Sorry.
All right, Denjo12. Appreciate the 5 months in a row of that Twitch Prime sub. Much love, fam.
Know that your sub will go towards science of MMOs.
All right, let's see the sign. I want to see the science, Altai. Let's see. I can't even see the full x-axis.
What x-axis? There's nothing. There's nothing here.
It's February 23rd, 2000 what?
I went 2014. I'll go back. I'll go back even more.
I'm seeing some little bumps over there, Altai.
Oh, here we go. No. In fact, what's fun? This one really proves you wrong. It's total opposite. As sword art went out, as interest in sword art went up, MMORPG went down.
You know what? I like it. Chaos gave a good suggestion. Search MMO, not MMORPG. This isn't MMORPGs.com. We're MMOs.com, all right?
All right, fine. MMO.
Oh, I'm seeing a little bit of a bump over there, Altai. I'm seeing
What are you talking about? It went down. Same thing. Look,
It still went down. Hold on. It's look. I'm seeing a little bit of a bump.
there's no
All right.
bump. Come on.
There's a bit of a bump.
Oh my god.
You know, there's a correlation, and they're both going down together now. All right, see?
Yeah,
There was a little
uh-huh.
beginning.
What does that mean?
I don't know. Debunked. Debunked, boys.
Get debunked.
All right.
Total correlation. It's all connected.
It's all connected to Sword Art Online, boys. It's all connected. We tried to watch. I was saying the pregame. I tried to watch Sword Art Online Alicization. It had a really cute. Listen, very minor detour over here. All right. We didn't finish the anime, by the way. I think it started off okay and it got pretty bad. So we X'd out of it. But we got to episode 12. The problem was it had a really cute lolly girl at the beginning, and then she got older and the show got bad. True or false? That's when it got bad. They should keep the lolly young and innocent and cute.
I feel like the whole show, it should have been 12 episodes, not 24. That was their mistake.
Yeah.
So they just dragged it up.
Yeah, indeed. But one day, Altai, when we get the full dive VR technology, MMOs will be back.
I don't think so. First of all, full dive, I don't think it's happening in our lifetime. So
Right.
we got that to look forward to.
Yikes.
Huh? It is 50 episodes, guys? I thought it was 24. Oh, God.
No, he's talking about the entire series, maybe.
Oh, maybe.
The Alicization, I think, was only 16 episodes. Anyway, we should let's go back to current existing MMORPGs, boys. Final Fantasy 14 launched a pretty big update this last week. Worth talking about because it's actually a little bit different. I think you'll be pleased with this because it introduced a raid to the game.
Ooh.
And a raid that you would actually consider a raid. We had a discussion.
So not 4 people. Nice.
Not 4 people, not 8 players of the default raids, right? And they had Alliance raid roulettes with 24 players. But Altai, get this. They added a raid to the game that's 56 players.
Damn. That's a raid. All right.
And Altai, get this. If you die in the raid, like if you get to the final, there's like multiple bosses. If you get to the final boss and then you die, you can't res in the fight.
Good.
And if you all die, you all get teleported back outside the dungeon. You got to do the whole thing over again.
So not only is it a raid, but it's a dungeon.
De-level.
So it's a dungeon, actually.
Yeah, and you de-level when you die.
So it's not just a boss fight.
No. There's some trash there too, Altai. They added trash just for you.
Finally. All right. See, that's what they must have listened. They must have listened.
They must have listened, boys.
Right.
So again, this is in the Eureka zone in the game. There's a separate leveling process, right? So if you die in Eureka in the game, and if you don't get res, you lose experience, and you can actually de-level. So if the current max level there is 60. So once you get to 60, you can basically challenge this boss. You can actually challenge beforehand if you want to, but most players get to 60, then do the boss. And if you die there, you have to re-grind up experience to get back to 60 before going back to the boss. But it's really cool for a lot of reasons. They actually build as like a more challenging experience than the typical content. It's not like they're Savage tier difficult or the Ultimate tier difficult, but it's more difficult than the Close Your Eyes and Face Roll content tier difficult. Mainly because there are mechanics in these fights that aren't mechanically challenging, right? But you have to work together with multiple people to get to basically beat these bosses. So there's Absolute Virtue, for example, was a Final Fantasy XI boss that took like over a year for players to clear it because like there was a mechanic in Absolute Virtue in Final Fantasy XI that you couldn't really beat the boss till you like found out his secret and like did the mechanic in a very specific way. So in Final Fantasy XI, there's a mechanic for Absolute Virtue as well. So if you pull the boss regularly, you get dunked. It has a buff on itself, which basically, you don't know what the buff does. But when he has that buff, he basically destroys your party right away. But you can summon a portal before you get the absolute virtue that takes you somewhere else where you can summon a boss outside the dungeon. So, and try to follow me over here, Altai. So you summon a boss outside the dungeon,
Okay.
and you have to rely on people that are not in the dungeon to go kill that boss that you just summoned. This is all in the Eureka area. It supports like 200 players, right? So the 56 players are in the dungeon, and 150 players outside the dungeon. So those players have to go find this boss that you summon and kill it. If they kill that boss, it weakens absolute virtue in the dungeon and makes you be able to kill him. So you find access to this place by using one of the logos, one of the special actions for Eureka. So you kind of have to discover how to beat this boss that isn't really related to in-game mechanics of just like dodging orange circles, which is kind of interesting because it's the first time we have a boss fight that's not like itself mechanically challenging, but involves some level of cooperation between players and some outside the box thinking.
I mean, that's beautiful. That's what this genre is supposed to be about. If you want like a mechanical fight, go play Dark Souls. So
go play Dance Dance Revolution. Go play Dark Souls. Yeah. There are plenty of games that are mechanically challenging. Go play Battlerite. I do agree that MMORPGs aren't about just dodging orange circles. MMORPG is the entire experience of cooperation with other players too. There are better mechanically challenging games than MMORPG if you want purely mechanics.
And the sense of community should be shared server wide. So things like requiring or needing people outside the dungeon to do something. It kind of reminds me of the whole Encourage Gates thing in WoW, where it was a server wide chore to accomplish something in the server.
I think the best comment in this entire stream was, why does Altai look like he wants to sell me olive oil by Stealthy Assault? That's the best thing I've read all week, boys. 10 out of 10. But so I think it took players about like 2 or 3 days to clear this content, so the hardcore people. And now since then, many people have cleared it. But what's interesting is if you die on the final boss, you can't get rezzed, right? But there's a buff someone can cast on that gives like a 7% chance to get rezzed. So if you die, you might auto-res because of that. But if you die on the boss and you don't get rezzed, you don't get any rewards. So everyone that's alive at the end gets rewards. And you get that really cool mount you can see in the stream right now. It's the Osmo mount in the game. So if you die on the final boss, and then you're done though. You don't get the mount and you have to redo the whole thing over again. And it's very frustrating because, people that cleared the boss already have no incentive to go back and do it again.
Yeah, that's true.
So you're playing with people that are, that never cleared it before either. And it becomes very frustrating for you.
I got to say, this mount design is very, very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Just an orb.
The orb itself actually changes form depending on if you're on land, it looks like that. If you're flying, it looks like a triangle. It changes to a different thing. So it is different. If land, sea, and air has slightly different variation for it. It's supposed to be like this. The orbit, it looks pretty cool. It spins around too.
Well, that's pretty cool.
And one more Final Fantasy XIV related issue, which I want to mention, is because it falls into our conversation about toxicity, something we've talked about in great detail for the last couple of years. And Final Fantasy XIV actually updated one of their policies, their Prohibited Activities policy. And they said they want to take a more active stance in policing the community. They said prior to this, we used to take a much more hands-off approach where, unless there's like a physical threat or something extreme, they didn't want to intervene. They didn't want to censor things. They didn't want to intervene. But they said they want to change direction on that front and go with a much more hands-on approach. They want to create a better, a safer environment for online players. I mean, we've seen a lot of games go this route, so I'm not particularly surprised. But there's one part of this story which I found pretty ridiculous. Now, I've never actually read their prohibited activities policy in Final Fantasy XIV before, but there's one line that I found pretty ridiculous under offensive expression. So if you scroll down to offensive expression, Altai, can you read us the fourth one from the top?
Okay, so here's my favorite one too. Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
These are things that are prohibited. Expressions that unilaterally reject another person's opinion.
Oof. I don't get that either. It makes no sense because look, if they just said like don't be a douchebag, right? I get that. That's a very sensible, like don't be like extremely offensive. They say something like that, I think anyone can get behind that, right? But if you say you can't unilaterally reject another person's opinion, if some retard tells you that, no, dude, you can't be a black mage, be a thaumaturge, they're even better. It's like the pre-job change version of black mage where you can just have less abilities. I'm gonna be like, nah, bruh, you're wrong. You just 100% retarded and wrong. I can't unilaterally reject his opinion. Come on. So
I'm not exactly sure what they mean by unilaterally here. So imagine you and me both gang up on somebody and tell him he's wrong. Is that okay? Because there's two of us now.
Oh, there you go. Well, no, I think what they're trying to say, you have to weigh his opinion, even if his opinion is wrong. So This is actually is a new policy because if you look at archive.org, I gave you this is from 2017. I believe, yeah. I'm looking at one. This is from February 14th, 2017. That was their old prohibited activities list, and there was nothing about rejecting someone's opinion. Control of opinion. There's nothing there. So this is a relatively new phenomenon. Whether they added it just this last 2 weeks, or it snuck in there before. But when this caught my eye, I was so surprised because, how is rejecting someone's opinion at all an offensive expression that is considered bannable? This is listed as an offensive expression that could result in your account being terminated. I mean, obviously they can ban your account for any reason, but by putting this in here, it just almost like a slap to our common sense. I mean, we know, like, if you do something bad, they can just ban you anyway. Like, in fact, in their terms of service, there's a line that says we can ban your account for any reason or no reason at all, and there's nothing you can do about it. That basically covers Square Enix's ass to ban anybody for any reason. By putting this in their offensive expression section of their policy, it's so it's so stupid. Because there's nothing wrong with rejecting someone's opinion if it's bad. There are bad opinions. There are just people that are unilaterally wrong. There is objectively wrong. And telling them they're wrong should not be against terms of service in the game.
I'm actually kind of not a fan of this one either. Expressions that compel a playing style. Well, last time I checked, if I'm sitting in my computer in my house, and you're sitting in your computer in your house, and I type to you, hey, play a tank, you suck at healing. I'm not compelling you. I'm, asking you to switch. I will leave the party, or I will kick you from my party if you don't. But I don't think it should count as compelling somebody.
I think what they mean there is, like, obviously, like, if you have like 6 people telling I don't know, because if you have 6 people telling one guy to play a certain way,
he's not compelled.
He's not. He can just leave. You're right.
He can just leave, or we can kick him. Or I don't understand.
Yeah, you should be able to tell him, like, listen, play this way, or we're gonna kick you. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, right?
Well, according to this, there is, right?
But it is expressions that attempt to unilaterally exclude someone from the game or content or community, except when it accords with rules set by the free company. So a guildmaster can kick somebody if they're not playing a certain way. So presumably, you can only do that if you're a guild leader,
but not a party
which
leader.
Also doesn't make sense, because if I'm in a party and one guy's like, if somebody's playing a paladin in Final Fantasy XIV, a paladin is a tank class in the game, right? But they have one heal ability, right? A very, not efficient heal ability you can use, right? If you just saying, you know what, I'm gonna play a paladin, but I'm gonna play a healer paladin that's a pacifist. I'm only gonna heal. I'm not gonna tank. I'm not gonna attack. I'm gonna heal people. Like, I'm gonna tell that guy, change your playstyle or get the fuck out, and that should be perfectly allowed. But I guess by any cursory reading of this list over here, it would be bannable. Which also doesn't make any sense.
I got a great science idea here. All right, maybe we should do this. Make a guild or a free company and say, pick a race you don't like the bunny race, whatever. Okay? Well,
all right, Vieras.
And say,
let's say we hate them.
No Vieras allowed in my guild. And then say, I'm role playing. Now, will you get in trouble, or can someone complain and say you're being racist in the game?
I don't think we get in trouble, because I think there are already like Lalafell only or like Elezen only guilds in the game, but they don't build it as like, you can't be this to join. It's more like you have to be this to join. So maybe if they say like, because one is like only if you exclude somebody rather than being only inclusive of one race, it might be viewed a little bit differently. Those nacho cookies, thank you for those $5, much appreciated. I think if you did that, if you said like you can't join this free company because you're a Lalafell, or you're an Elezen, you're a I think you probably would get in trouble.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be funny if someone did that, and then I suspect, though, in the future, you will have a case of somebody getting kicked from a party or a free company for just not being a good player, and then they will report the free company for that.
And here's the thing: Alta, I would say, is actually pretty unreasonable. But I don't think I'm unreasonable when it comes to a lot of these issues. Okay, like if you look under aggressive expression such as violent language, slander, insult, or threat. I mean, Alta is okay with slander and insult too, right?
Yeah, as long as you can block the guy.
Yeah, look, I can understand that. While I disagree with this, I can understand why they put that there, right? Because as long as you can block somebody, I think it fixes most things. Remember, the keyword here is aggressive expressions. And expressions that provoke or belittle another person, such as excessive criticism. Remember, it's not criticism, it's excessive criticism, where you go beyond the extra mile and go be extra douchebag. Look, I agree. If you block them, it's fine.
If you keep making new accounts, if they keep making new accounts or getting other people to keep whispering racist stuff to them, that you can get I can get behind banning the guy who initiated that snowball of hate, right? But if one guy PMs you, I don't care how racist he's being, if you just right click block him and it stops there, come on. It's called just live and let live.
I agree, but again, I can understand why they put something about excessive criticism. Going like I get why they put that there, but I do not understand why they put unilaterally reject another person's opinion or attempt to exclude someone from the game for compelling a playstyle. I think if you're a healer, you best be healing, and if you're not healing, I'm gonna kick you out. I don't care. Don't tell me you're a DPS healer. Don't tell me you're a tank healer. Okay, no, that ain't flying in my party. All right, and you should get kicked for You should be excluded for doing that.
I'm curious. Now, here's the interesting thing. I know countries or game companies like this use different policies in different countries.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, leaving games is much more tolerated in League of Legends in Korea than in North America. So, I wonder if this policy is enforced in Europe and Japan or just North America. This current Final Fantasy XIV policy.
Honestly, I'm not sure. I mean, it comes down to enforcement because I know, and I'm sure in South Korea as well for League of Legends, and we had a long conversation about players leaving games and stuff. I'm pretty sure it's against their policy as well, but it's unenforced in South Korea.
Oh, all right. I mean, so I'm curious though. They obviously changed it for some reason in North America.
Yeah, they did. This is a relatively new change because we know these rules did not exist in 2017, which I think it's pretty silly to have these here, and I think And I don't think this is the weird part too. Like it's almost insulting to put these here because at any point a GM could just ban someone for breaking their terms of service or their terms of service. They say they can ban you for any reason, right? But by putting these here, it almost does feel insulting to everyone else because nothing changed. Their enforcement ability never changes by changing this, and having this as a guideline to say you can't disagree with people unilaterally doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a overreach.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's their game; they can do what they want, but just by putting these here, it really makes me roll my eyes personally, and I love Final Fantasy XIV. So, as a big fan of the game, it makes me roll my eyes a lot.
Oh my goodness, those nacho cookies! Oof. We got some gift subs going out. It's the first time I've seen that.
Those nacho cookies. You are the first one on the MMOs.com podcast that have done these gift subs. Much appreciated, fam. Much love. And after this podcast, we're gonna get some nacho cookies. All right, I'm not sure what they are, but we're gonna get some to celebrate. All right. Much love.
I just learned this feature recently overall on Twitch. Oh, because I realized I was subbed to a few channels, right? And I never subbed to any channel actually. And then I'm like, why am I subbed to these three? I checked my credit card because I thought maybe I got hacked. And then someone explained to me that it was a gift sub.
Ooh. So
that's pretty cool.
Now here's the real question: did we get those gift subs for defending Lolly in the pregame, or for attacking sensible people that are too sensitive for the Final Fantasy XIV thing? All right,
a little bit,
maybe both.
Well, someone named Lolly Listens got one of those free subs. So is that a coincidence?
Ooh, I don't think so. I think it makes sense.
All right, what else we got?
What else we got on the agenda, boys?
Well, Black Desert is finally nearing release on Xbox. It took. I honestly thought this happened last year, but apparently,
yeah, it's nice and slow.
Nice and slow. March 4th, so better late than never, I guess. PlanetSide got delayed. PlanetSide Arena, which I think it's for one reason, and that's because they don't want to compete with Apex Legends, and they took the odd step of actually refunding everyone who actually pre-ordered it, which I suspect means they really did not want to compete with Apex Legends.
Yeah, right. I mean, it makes sense. There's no reason. I mean, it's pretty ridiculous because remember, PlanetSide Arena, the new PlanetSide game, is basically just a compartmentalized version of PlanetSide 2, which is already out, and that's free to play. But this is going to cost money. So why would you want to play a game like Apex Legends that just costs money? It's a buy-to-play game. Now, the one unique part about it, or interesting part, is that it's going to have like 1,000-player battle royale or something crazy, like 500 players or something. So at least they're pushing the boundary with how many players in a single game. That's really the only innovative part. But beyond that, it really does feel like a much less ambitious PlanetSide 2 because you already had 1,000-player, 2,000-player battles in PlanetSide 2. So they have the technology for it, and they're going to compartmentalize it into Capture the Flag, Team Deathmatch, and Battle Royale, these different game modes. So we'll see how it works, but I'm not a fan of the buy-to-play model for it. Considering their source game, it's a re-sliced up PlanetSide 2, which is already free to play.
Which, like you said, it kind of I bet they're hitting themselves for putting so much work into Fantasy Star Online 2. What am I saying? For PlanetSide 2, when they realized all they had to do back then was make a battle royale, which was probably 10 times easier, and it could have been a huge game right now.
We'll see if the 1,000-player battle royale helps differentiate them. There's a few other battle royale games that were in the pipeline that are going to be like a crazy number of players, but forget what it's called. There's another one in the pipeline too, but we'll see how they do. I mean, I do want my one criticism for Apex Legends. I do want to see more players in the game, but I'm starting to realize that might be a me problem because a lot of people do like the 60 players. Almost everybody I ask prefer, and like, you know what, it's fine. They should keep it 60. They don't want to have it too crazy.
I think obviously it matters to the map. So for example, 60 players on Kings Canyon, right? Whatever the map is called.
Yeah.
In Apex feels better, more crowded than the 100-player limit in PUBG. You know, the
Or
PUBG.
Fortnite.
Yeah, the PUBG map must be like, I'm gonna say like 5 times bigger than the Apex map. So in that regard, 60 makes some sense.
Fair.
And well, you know, we had another MMORPG go from buy to play to free to play exactly 1 week ago.
Which one?
I have actually never played this, but now that it's free, it's got 100 players online. Maybe I'll give it a shot. I'm curious if you've tried this one. It's called Terra, and it looks like Lineage 1, baby.
Not really an MMORPG. Yeah, actually, this one is kind of an MMORPG, I think. I thought it was more of a survival game. I'm pretty sure it's more of a survival game than an MMORPG. And I think we did try this. It just never had a lot of players, so it was very hard to actually play. What's funny is this game actually came out and said, we didn't go free to play out of necessity. We did it as a next step in our evolution as a game. I don't know about that, boys. The game averaged like 30 players online. It seemed like necessity to me.
Yeah, right? The all-time peak players was 300.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Yeah, it's free to play now, so we might give it a chance, but it looks more of like a Rust-style game than a traditional MMORPG. It does look a lot like Lineage 1 or Legend of Mirror than anything else, though. I mean, I doubt anybody in the Twitch chat old enough to remember Legend of Mirror. That's an oldie, boys.
We played that when I was in 7th grade, I remember.
Looks like trash. Just say it, Rage Gamer. You pulled the words right out of our mouth. All right. Though I do like the Legend of Mirror art style to it, though.
Yeah,
I love the old look.
This game has mixed reviews, so it's probably not that great. But I will say a part of me misses this kind of game, graphic style.
Definitely. Just play Hell. I don't think we've played Hellbreath all the time. That's another game a lot of people in chat mentioned. You know what game I want to talk about actually? Guns the Frickin' Duel. I know we watched an amazing Guns video recently. Maybe we'll talk about it in the post game though. That's a post game thing.
Guns the Duel. Yeah, we'll talk about it in the post game. Anything else to cover here?
One minor one we can talk about before we get to the post game. I think a big news this week is that we're going to be hearing from Google at GDC in March. And Google has been apparently investing a lot into the streaming technology for gaming. I mean, they have a big announcement coming at GDC. Everyone's kind of speculating it's going to be related to their being able to stream games through Chrome. They did like a beta test before, I think, with Witcher. So I think Google is going ham on that gaming streaming technology. We've seen it on live. We've seen a lot of companies try doing this, and no one's really managed to capture it yet really well. But if you want to learn more about the technology, I know Linus Tech Tips did a video on that streaming tech. So there's something out there. I remember playing Witcher 2, I think, back in the day on one of those technologies. It worked, but never really caught on because of latency issues. But maybe Google will fix that ship, but we'll have to find out.
I am not optimistic on that. I've been hearing about, and I know we got a fan who watches often. He is a huge proponent of the streaming stuff, but I am
cloud gaming. Yeah,
I am not optimistic on cloud gaming anytime soon. I think the average person has a router that's like 10 years old in their basement on top of a stack of books in a bookshelf in a corner right next to the freaking hot water heater. And then they're trying to play a game on their second floor apartment, right, or bedroom. So the average setup it's not conducive for streaming gaming. So
people are playing Wi-Fi, in their homes already, which is already not optimal. I mean, the first thing I tell people, like, are you on Wi-Fi when they say they're lagging? I'm like yeah, they usually say yes. You have to be unwired, right?
Not just that, they have their freaking router in the basement. Like so it has to go through 2 floors of crap. Like it just baffles my mind that people live like that. I don't get it. Like savages, really. It's like
uncultured swine.
It's a shit.
I bet they're running on what 802.11g. Not even upgrade to N yet. What's wrong with them?
It's like not having a toilet in your house. Like it's like shitting in the corner and then like putting burying it in sand.
You heard it here first, boys. Having your router in the basement is equivalent to shitting in the corner and burying it in sand. All right.
Speaking of stupidity, I got a little fun story here. So there was a VR game that came out last year called Apex Construct. Okay. And sales of Apex Construct, a VR game on Steam, went up 4,000% after the release of Apex Legends. Because a bunch of dummies thought they were buying Apex Legends. And these are the two logos side by side. I guess
a little. I can see some of the similarities. A little bit.
I'm just amazed at stories like this. You know,
Nice, yeah.
I think this game costs like $30 too.
Good for them. Good for Apex Construct. All right.
Talk about winning the lottery. You know, talk about dumb luck. Like imagine you make a game. You know, a few people buy it. A year later, all of a sudden, boom.
I like it. They can't ask for a refund, you're right. But I feel like some people out there might be too ashamed to ask for a refund. And honestly, they shouldn't give refunds. If you're that much of a baka, you should take it.
Yeah, I agree.
Please accept your loss.
I've noticed that on TV, for example, you have a lot of scam products, infomercials, and they always say, you know, refund, you know, guaranteed, whatever, right? Because I think they know that a lot of people just will not do a refund. They'll just say, "Oops, I messed up," and then just move on. Like, "Oh, this is garbage." They'll throw it away, and then they'll just not get the refund. So this company is going to be very happy with their windfall.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. Besides that, that's a good story. So, Blacklight Retribution Awards finally shutting down. What do you think of that?
I honestly forgot the game existed till you mentioned it, and I played that game a decent amount too. I mean, I think it was on Steam for a while.
It was on Steam for a while. Yeah. This was free to play lobby shooter by Perfect World, published by Perfect World. It had a moment in the sun. It was better looking when it came out than a lot of the Korean trash that came before it. I will say that. Like, for example, it looked a lot better than Combat Arms.
Mm-hmm.
It had its moment in the sun, but obviously that moment has passed. We have a lot of much better free-to-play shooters now, like Apex Legends. So I think a lot of these games will eventually follow Blacklight into the sunset.
I mean, the really different part about Blacklight was like it had a feature where like at a certain once you fill up your meter, you can like see through walls. So I think every character had ability that like when the cooldown ran out, you had a wall hack. So it's pretty cool. It's like wall hack was built into the game, but you can only use it like momentarily, which is kind of cool. They did a lot of little things different than other shooters, and that's why I guess it lasted such a long time. But I'm not surprised it's shutting down. It's been out for a while. It's been losing players nonstop, and it's done so now.
Yeah, a few weeks ago we lost Dirty Bomb, and so yeah, I think this whole free to play lobby shooter, which was inspired by those early Korean games,
Combat Arms and whatnot. Yeah, AVA, Combat Arms.
I feel like that entire segment is on the way out. It was a brief moment they shined. And that's it.
I'll tell you, AVA Dog Tag has no chance. I don't get it. The guys that made Alliance of Valiant Arms think they can just relaunch this game like fucking years later, and people are gonna play this. Ain't nobody playing AVA Dog Tag. Like, Red Duck, what are you doing? So, this game is relaunching through their own developer, Red Duck, who is funneling money to ESL to run esports events for Alliance of Valiant Arms. Yeah, that one that was on EG like 10 years ago, and the one that shut down, and then Area Games picked it up, and Area Games was like, we don't want this shit, we're shutting it down, and then In Mass picked it up. The guys behind Terra, they picked it up. They put on the In Mass launcher for like a year, and then they shut it down because nobody wants to play this shit. And now Red Duck is like, you guys don't understand. This game is fucking amazing. We're going to publish it ourselves, and everyone's going to play it.
We'll show you.
We'll show you. And then they're putting money into esports by paying ESL to run some tournaments for this game. But no, the problem isn't esports. The problem is this game was fun back like in the Combat Arms days when this was like a Combat Arms alternative. But now I can play Counter-Strike Go for free. Fuck that. No one's going to play these Korean shooters are donezo. Honestly, Black Squad is infinitely better than Combat Arms as well. There's so many better free-to-play shooters now.
Iron Sight.
There's no chance for these games anymore. None. Zero. Zilch.
Indeed.
And if they make if Alliance of Valiant Arms becomes like the next big esport and it's got over 100,000 concurrent players, ain't gonna happen. But I'll donate $1,000 to some random ass charity. All right, it ain't gonna happen though.
You'll donate $1,000 to a tournament for.
Yes, I will sponsor a $1,000 tournament for Alliance of Valiant Arms if they maintain 100,000 average concurrent player base for any month.
There you go, boys.
Boys. That's the MMOs.com commitment.
All right. Well, with that amazing promise, we will move on to the post game.
Let's do it. I won't talk about guns.
All right. Take care, guys.
Post game. Take care for YouTube.